Morning. My name is Commissioner Pat Kemp, and I'm chair of the HART Strategic Planning and External Relations Committee. Welcome to the August 17th, 2020 meeting. The meeting's now called to order. Please look at the screens of your devices. An image of the flag is displayed. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have the flag? It's okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you. Staff, can you do the roll call, please?
Yes, good morning. This is Danielle from HART. Please say here after your name is called. Chair Kemp?
Yes.
Director Hardin?
Yes, present.
Director Castor?
Yes.
Director McLean indicated that he would be absent. Director Mechanic?
Yes, I'm here.
And Director Overman?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. HART General Counsel Julia Mandel will read into the record the rules for committee participation. Julia, will you please read the rules?
Yes, good morning. Thank you for your participation in this virtual meeting. The change of meeting location from in-person at the HART Administrative Office to virtual meeting is pursuant to Executive Order Number 20-179, extending Executive Order 20-69 by the Governor of the State of Florida on July 29, 2020, and Section 120.54 Florida statute. Due to social distancing, the boardroom and the e-board administrative office is only accessible for personnel facilitating this meeting. Please keep your devices and phones muted when not speaking. Muting the sound and the microphone of your device help avoid feedback. Also, you can enable your video camera on your device if you so choose, but you need to discontinue all personal conversations for the duration of the meeting. Please follow along with a copy of the meeting agenda and materials sent via email. All presentations will be shared on the screen while presented. Roll call will be taken for attendance and for voting by HART staff. Quorum and voting results will be announced. There will be an opportunity for members of the public who have pre-registered with HART staff to provide comments, and General Counsel will read in the record the public comment participation rules. During the meeting, please wait until the chair asks for comments or questions from committee or board members for each agenda item as the meeting progresses. When you want to provide a comment or ask a question, please signal that you want to speak by activating the hand button, which is in the white circle next to the name on your screen. The hand will turn blue when activated. Staff will read the hands raised in order for the chair to acknowledge, then participant may unmute their device and speak. Please speak your name before the comment. Presenters, please note that all presentations will be controlled by HART staff. Ensure that you state your name, title, and company or organization for the record. Please say next slide when needed, and staff will progress through the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to draw everyone's attention to page 3 of the packet to review the Strategic Planning and External Committee meeting roles and responsibilities. The next agenda item is the approval of the Strategic Planning and External Relations Committee meeting of June 30th, 2020. You can find on page 5 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Danielle, will you take the vote by, will you give us a count?
Yes, ma'am. Please say yes or no after your name is called. Chair Kemp?
Yes.
Director Hardin?
Yes.
Director Castor?
Yes.
Director Mechanic?
Yes.
Director Overman?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. The next agenda item is public comment. HART General Counsel Julia Mandel will read into the record the rules for public participation.
Yes. The board welcomes public comment about any issue and concerns and has made provisions to allow for virtual public comment. Public comments offered virtually will be afforded equal consideration as if they were offered in person. Anyone wanting to provide public comment for any HART committee or board meeting should contact Danielle Arthur, Board Administrator, at arthurd@gohart.org or 813-955-2426 with your name and phone number for pre-registration. Comments are due by 5 p.m. the day previous to the meeting. Staff will call on speakers by name in the order in which the registrations were received. All callers will be muted upon calling and unmuted in the submission after being recognized by name. Please state your full name and organization, address if desired. Up to 3 minutes will be allowed for each speaker, and the speaker will be muted once time is up. Staff, please proceed to public comment.
And staff, do we have public comment?
There is no one who pre-registered to speak. Thank you.
Okay, this is a lot of time to... we'll have a conclusion to the public input section of the meeting. Again, HART General Counsel will read the closing statement into the record. Do we need that without public comment?
We really don't need to read that into the record since there was no public comment.
Okay, thank you. We can skip that. All right. And next we go to committee action items, and the first one is adopting HART Policy 100, HART Organization 140, Duties and Functions of the Staff. General Counsel, you're recognized.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. I know you're have a long agenda for your meeting today. I believe David Smith had raised this issue previously and had drafted an amendment to the policy relating to the General Counsel. This was intended to clarify the role of the General Counsel as it relates to day-to-day operations of HART versus its role as it relates to the board. I can answer any questions. I believe Mr. Smith has discussed this with you previously.
Are there any hands raised?
No, ma'am, not at this time.
Okay. I had spent some time on this a little while ago, but I had not talked to him since. And I'm not prepared to move this forward. Maybe we can just move this to the next meeting. Is there a motion to continue, I guess? Can we do that? Is there a motion to approve and move it forward?
I'll make the motion to defer.
Okay. We have a motion to defer. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Pardon, second.
Staff, can you take the roll call, please?
Yes, ma'am. Please say yes or no after your name is called. Chair Kemp?
Yes.
Director Hardin?
Yes.
Director Castor?
Yes.
Director Mechanic?
Yes.
Director Overman?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Julia Mandel. If I could just ask a question, Chairwoman Kemp, would you like me to have Mr. Smith contact you to discuss this with you in more depth?
Yes, definitely. Yes. And I'll contact him. It's just there was a lot of things going on, and somehow, at least for me, I didn't review it recently with any deliberateness, and I don't know that I ever spoke to him about it specifically.
That's fine. I'll make sure he's aware. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, the next action item presented by John Edmondson, Director of Procurement and Contracts. That's a review of the Evaluation Committee's recommendation to advance the top 3 firms of Potomac Partners, DC, Becker and Poliakoff, and Holland and Knight to the full Board of Directors for presentation, selection, and awarding of the contract for state and federal legislative services. So, Mr. Edmondson?
Thank you, Commissioner. John Edmondson, Director of Procurement and Contracts, for the record.
Just as a quick memory refresher, back in June of this year, at that June 1st board meeting, we went through the procurement process for HART to acquire consultant services for federal and state legislative efforts, as well as external relations efforts. Everything kind of combined into one solicitation. Historically, HART has had two separate contracting efforts, one for the federal side, one for the state and local side. We were hoping that we could combine those into a single procurement effort as well as a single contract award. We laid out the competitive solicitation process for the board, recommended that a board member be appointed to that evaluation committee. That evaluation has since taken place. And the next step in the procurement process is to have the firms who scored the highest or who scored the best in their technical evaluations be moved forward to make a presentation at the next full board of directors meeting. And then at the conclusion of that meeting, we will be able to make a contract award to the firm selected by the board. In the packet that you were provided is an action item, and the action item details what the evaluation process was and the outcome of that effort. It lays out exactly what each responding firm scored for technical and for price, and whether or not they earned an applicable bonus for being able to provide both the state and local as well as the federal services. And for the most part, that was successful. And so at this time, we are recommending that this committee approve moving forward Potomac Partners, Becker and Polyakov, and Holland and Knight, the three firms who were the most successful in the evaluation, so that they may make their presentations to the full board and allow the full board to make the final decision. Any questions?
Move approval.
Yes. We have a motion to move approval. Is there a second?
Second, Mayor Castle.
Okay. And I'll just say, I don't know if there are others that want to speak. Is there anyone who wants to speak right now? Yep. Go ahead, Commissioner Overman.
Thank you. As indicated in the background information, I had the honor of actually participating in this RFP process. It was quite elaborate. We, as an organization, should be very proud to have had 9 respondents come in. They all did an excellent job. The process that we went through was very deliberate, it was formulaic in structure, but clearly was able to, in the process of going through the voting process and the method of which we indicated our scoring, was deliberated among the various different committee members, and that was impressive to see happen. The 3 that rose to the top, there were actually 4 that rose to the top, but the top 3 did very well in their responses, and we would be served very well, and looking forward to them coming to the big board, the main board, to make their presentation, and we would be well served by any one of these 3 candidates. So I'll stop there.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
No, ma'am, not at this time.
Okay. I'll speak at this time. Again, I will not support moving this forward, and there's a variety of reasons. One is, first of all, it doesn't make sense to me when we're on the verge of a huge election to be selecting a firm at this time. Firms work with different governments, and at this time, I think we should I just think we should continue this and begin a procurement after November 5th. Would make total sense to me in terms of how we move forward. Also, I just wondered about if we specifically, I remember talking very about combining the 2 teams, but did we ever, did the board approve, specifically hiring the same team for the federal and state? Because that is a change, and it could be very different in terms of what moves forward with that.
In process, no, the board did not make a motion nor pass a motion to hire the same firm for both federal and state. In historic practice for this organization, we have had the same firm conduct both federal legislative consulting services and state and local government relations services. So all we have basically done with this procurement is follow past practice, but take it a little bit of a step further, and rather than have two separate contracts for the same firm, we combine them into a single contract.
Okay. And I'm not sure I feel totally comfortable with that either. I'd like that discussion. The other thing is that I'll say that the way that this is framed, and this is for me after November 5th, I would hope that we wouldn't move forward on this. It wouldn't really make any sense for us to move forward at this time in approving any team for this. And in fact, doing a solicitation before a major, really, it could be a very shifting election, could change really the very much makeup of our federally and maybe somewhat state. We could see changes in these firms. You know, I think it's very important to evaluate who we get in terms of what happens after November 5th. But the other about this was I didn't see backup with regards to these firms. And, you know, when I looked at the top three, I'll just say this. I mean, Potomac Partners is a whole different scale of Becker and Polyakoff and Holland and Knight, which are, Holland and Knight, and Becker and Polyakoff have huge lobbying staffs and operations. And, Potomac Partners was de minimis very much. And I thought, for them to have been put on the same scale. But I also, in past operations, I'll just let this board know, because I was here when we decided our last contract, we very much looked at all the background of the firms, and it sounds like here, if I'm not mistaken, is the recommendation to just advance the three firms and then let staff do negotiation and decide kind of which among the three to put forward. That's how I read the recommendation, but maybe I'm okay. Go ahead.
The recommendation is for this committee to approve the three firms that scored the highest, to allow those firms the opportunity to make a presentation to the full board of directors, and then the full board of directors select from those three which they would like to enter into contract negotiations with.
Okay. I really think that time is not right on this, and that we would be really served far better by waiting till after November 5th and seeing and doing a resolicitation and finding at that time.
Commissioner, if I may, the contracts that the current contracts that provide for federal legislative consulting and state and local government relations services, all of those contracts do expire at the end of September. So we would not be in a position, we would basically be without these services for, if you're suggesting that we reinitiate the procurement process after November, we would be without these services until the conclusion of that procurement process, presumably in January, when the full board would be able to make a decision.
And I'm well aware of that, but it's not a time when we really, who would be doing this before January 20th federally anyway? It wouldn't make any sense. And, I just do not see that as a problem. In fact, there wouldn't be opportunity for these lobbyists during that time. So I would very much support moving this. And I won't be supporting moving forward at this time because I don't really think it makes a lot of sense to move forward at this time. I'll just say in terms of hiring a team. So we have I don't know if there's anyone else that would like
Director Overman has her hand raised.
Sure. Director Overman, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I think some of the concerns were ferreted out in the RFP process. But I do think it would be a mistake to wait until January to begin this. Majority of the local state committees are all put together in the fall. The agendas and the issues have to be ferreted out, and those relationships have to be made right after the election. And so waiting until January is going to put us a year and a half behind. The good news is that the three top candidates had both excellent experience in both the federal and the state in terms of relationships, and they were actually very bipartisan, which is also very important in developing the relationships not only with Tallahassee but also with Washington. There was a great deal of depth in legislation, granting, federal funding, and all of those things of which our team locally here at HART must be aware of what those resources are there and how we could have our lobbyist team be best prepared for approaching those opportunities in full force. In the years past, we have not had not necessarily not had strong legislative support, but we as an organization haven't had a strong legislative strategy for helping this agency make its case for how critically important our overall economic success and sustainability of this community matters to our area. And I think that at no time has it been more important that we have great representation here to make the case for Hillsborough County as a whole and how critically important transit plays a part in our overall economic growth. And that was really obvious in the responses, as an opportunity in the responses. And I think part of the reason why the scoring, which weighted qualifications, the team members, and the experience and the references, had such a greater weight than say, current workload. Project approach and methodology, while it had a lower level of scoring in this example, the ones that were successful did a very good job of helping us understand how they could help this agency move forward. So I want to vote to move it forward. I want the board to approve one of the three. They're all excellent candidates, and they have the depth of team members to help us both at the state and federal level. To answer your question regarding the separation between the contracts, whether we need a federal one and we need a separate state one, only one of the candidates came back with a state-only answer. All the other applicants represented both state and federal in terms of their skill set. And the scoring reflects that where there was both state and federal expertise when it came to the first two qualifying categories in terms of the score. So I do understand your concern, and I do think November matters. But given that we saw a great deal of bipartisanship within the three top candidates, I would suggest that being ready for when the committees come together at the state legislature, as well as the federal races, I think is critically important. And I don't want to start behind the power curve this year.
Mm-hmm.
I'll stop there.
Okay. Is there anyone else with their hands raised?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Director Mechanic already.
This is Mechanic. I'd just like to point out that even if there was an inclination among the committee members to defer this, it is something that the board really should decide. Because if this item were deferred and then not brought to the board wouldn't necessarily know that there was a decision. So as a practical matter, I think we need to refer this to the board. And with respect to Commissioner Kemp, you are more than free to make all those points to the full board.
I wasn't, just to respond, I wasn't suggesting that we kill it here or anything like that. I was just expressing that it would definitely be something that would be discussed with the full board. I wouldn't imagine ever not going forward in terms of that. But just in terms of if there was a sense that maybe this should be put off a little. So is there any more? No more
No,
hands
ma'am,
raised?
not at this time.
Okay. I would just say that one of the three firms, I think, is clearly far less robust than the other two. And just to speak a little bit to our state resources here in Florida, we had a state senator in Pinellas for a long time that absolutely did not want to have 1 cent come to HART. And was very powerful in exercising that. And that was an issue for some years. And so, that reflects some of it, what has happened here. But generally, the state support follows the federal support, and, a bit of the resource, the state support, when it's been independent, has not been going to us. In fact, has been taken from us. But I'm not sure that we'll be able to solve that problem anytime soon. But that being said, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
No, ma'am, not that I can see.
Okay. Please, staff, will you please take the roll call?
Absolutely. Please say yes or no after your name is called. Chair Kemp?
Yes.
Director Harden?
Yes.
Director Castor?
Yes.
Director Mechanic?
Yes.
Director Overman?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Okay. And now we will move on to Nicole McCleary, Senior Project Planner, will make a presentation of the 2021-2030 Transit Development Plan Annual Update in support of committee action. Ms. McCleary? Yeah.
Good morning. I was talking to mute.
Okay, have it.
Good morning. Nicole
Thank you.
McCleary, Senior Project Planner. Today I'm going to present the 2021-2030 Transit Development Plan Annual Update. Next slide, please. So all transit agencies are required to prepare a 5-year major TDP and an annual update in the form of a progress report each year. The HART Board adopted the last major TDP September 25th, 2017. This year we are doing an annual update in the form of a project progress report. Next slide, please. So this year's annual update of the TDP will look at past year's accomplishments compared to the original implementation program, analysis of any discrepancies between the plan and the implementation plan for the past year, and steps that will be taken to attain original goals and objectives, added recommendations for the new 10th year, any revisions to the financial plan, and a revised list of projects or services needed to meet goals and objectives. Next slide, please. This year's key accomplishments and initiatives are organized according to the goals and objectives presented in the major TDP. Those goals are listed in the slide. There are 8 goals. The TDP goals and objectives were based on review and assessment of existing conditions, feedback received during public involvement process, and directions from local plans and applicable policies. Next slide, please. So for this year's annual update, we are looking to maintain service levels. So we are looking to maintain the pre-COVID transit system, as we have not yet received any of the All for Transportation sales tax dollars, and because our proposed service changes for fiscal year 2021 have not yet completed the process of approval, which includes public outreach, public hearing, and approval from the HART board. With the ongoing budget deficit and uncertainty of continued county funding support, HART has revised its fiscal year 21 implementation plan to reflect no proposed changes in the status quo funding scenario. Next slide, please. So here's a list of our funding projects, and I'll tell you a little bit about what's going on with them. Our comprehensive operations analysis, our COA, it began in 2020, and it's a network evaluation and short-term operations plan. This plan is supposed to feed into the major 30-year transit development plan, which would occur next year. And this plan initially wanted to look at the current network and how to expand using the surtax dollars. Right now, it's actually looking at evaluating the best way to move forward if we do not receive any surtax dollars and optimize our transit service. So an on-board survey for the COA was planned in mid-March, but it hasn't been deployed yet due to COVID. It has been postponed, but we have completed, we're near completion of the preliminary analysis, which will feed into our fiscal year 2021 service plan. We are currently doing the BRT study. The study, phase 1, has been completed. A board workshop has been scheduled in order to determine the path to move forward, whether we will implement smaller improvements or apply for the FTA project rating and move ahead with a capital grant in the Small Starts program. ITS replacement is an ongoing project. The AV pilot should be launching sometime this month, and that's a 1-year pilot on the Marion Transitway of an autonomous vehicle. We have transit vehicle replacement, which is an ongoing project for us where we're trying to replace our vehicles that are at the end of their useful life cycle. We will do a bus stops and shelters improvement study, which will look at, well, first of all, the last study like this was done 10 years ago. This new study will look at the shelters and examine which ones are ADA compliant. We will also look at possibly moving stops and improving the GPS location for accuracy. We are doing the TOD study with the City of Tampa as well as Hillsborough MPO. This is an FTA grant, and this examines and evaluates the performance of existing TOD policies for the City of Tampa and the MPO in relation to the streetcar project as well as the BRT. So among these projects, we also have a few more going on. We have the streetcar extension and modernization, as well as partnering with the Hillsborough MPO on the Plant City Transit feasibility study. Next slide, please. So for our vision plan reflects unfunded needs. These include premium services like limited express routes, frequency improvements, new local service, innovative solutions, and then on-demand services such as circulators. Next slide, please. So just to share with you guys a little bit about how the TDP and the AFT funds align. So the TDP really looks at existing funding sources. The AFT funding includes both funded and unfunded needs. The AFT also will advance unfunded TDP projects, and hopefully it will advance some of them ahead of the TDP schedule. Next slide, please. Here we're looking at our budget just to show how our current TDP aligns with our proposed fiscal year budget, so that currently the status quo will support what is proposed for the fiscal year 2021 budget. Next slide, please. So we have a few new unfunded projects that were entered into the TDP, and this includes the CSX Rail Corridor Study. We will look at using rail as a transit option between the Port of Tampa and the university area. Next slide, please. Another new unfunded project is the Cross Bay Ferry Project. HART will provide support staff to Hillsborough County in the next phase, and then we will evaluate supporting transit connections to the ferry. Next slide, please. So here we have the 10-year TDP unfunded local service, and this includes new local routes and improved frequency of routes. Next slide, please. And then we have our premium service, which includes improved frequency to existing premium service, as well as identified limited express and express new routes, as well as our BRT corridors and guideways. Next slide, please. So the requested board action is for us to approve the fiscal year 2021 Transit Development Plan, annual update, and submit to Florida Department of Transportation, and advance this item to the full board of directors at the September 14th, 2020 board meeting. Next slide, please. And at this time, I'll take any questions or comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have questions at this time or comments?
Director Overman has her hand raised.
Commissioner Overman, you're recognized.
Thank you, and thank you very much for the presentation. It's helpful to see what our long-term strategic plan looks like. The only piece that's in my mind that's missing from the presentation is an importance of addressing equity in our planning decisions. I'd like to see that is incorporated in some way, shape, or form. It probably is elsewhere other than in this presentation. But in terms of equity policy and how we make route decisions, I think it's critically important that our transit-oriented development plan reflects equity and looking at ways that we can assist riders that are transit-dependent is part of our planning process. And also the routes that I see coming, in those future routes are in great need right now. I like the new projects. Obviously, they're long-term. But I'd also like to make sure that we're not only looking at FDOT, but we're making sure that our focus in our strategic plan includes addressing where federal funds are available. And I think that's a very, very important part. Excuse me one moment. I'll be right back, but that's all I was going to say.
Thank you. Are there other comments?
No, ma'am, not that we see at this time.
Okay. I guess I will talk a bit about this. I have a lot of concerns. I want to start bringing this on a quarterly basis to the Strategic Planning Committee. That's the first, and I guess that would be the attorney or whatever staff there. We can make updates or changes to this plan at any time, correct?
Well, we make the changes annually, but we can definitely prepare the list of changes that we want throughout the year. Yes.
Because I think we need a lot more discussion, concentration, focus on several projects that are here or not here, with a plan for how we move forward on those projects very, very specifically. And the first one that I've become quite alarmed at, that, having been on the board 3.5 years, I've heard too little about until now, is transit vehicle replacement. So what I would like is a specific plan I'd like to see how we did it in the past and how we're going to do it in the future, because what I've been told is half of our fleet is, near not use or something to that effect. So I think we need a plan right away for how we remedy that, what situation we're facing, and what choices we should be making with regards to that. Some of the people at this meeting were at the earlier meeting, some were not, but we have, I assume, the LX20, 20LX in our TDP, and then we're looking at, whether FDOT funds that, but they don't really fund it. They only pay for part of the operations, and yet I'm being told that, and that, by the way, for those who don't know, is the bus that goes from, I guess, Land O'Lakes to downtown Tampa to McDill. We didn't get any ridership numbers. We didn't get any cost for that. That we'll be bringing forward. We didn't make a decision on it. But to me, that is, if we have dire vehicle needs and we cannot even, as I'm told, provide a vehicle as a downtown circulator, which I still can't, that's still another discussion. We certainly need to figure out, number one, I think, more than anything, the base of any transit agency in the nation, but for two, is their bus service. So I think we need to figure out, as soon as possible, how we quickly bring our, and what protocol, what metrics we should be using to determine our vehicle replacement and how we achieve that. So I think specifically we need to look at that. And is it your job as a consultant to bring that? Can I hear from staff? How can we start to explore that in and get a plan so that we can remedy that issue through our TDP and through our budget and everything else as quickly as possible, so we can start to focus attention on that.
So I believe that there is a yearly plan that deals with bus replacement. I'm going to call on Service Development Director Chris Cochran to talk about that a little bit more.
This is Scott Trainville, Deputy Chief of Maintenance and Facilities. We do have a plan. With our new capital plan, we do plan on replacing 16 vehicles each year. Right now it's the CNG, but we do want to keep a diverse fleet for many reasons. As far as propulsion, we won't know. We are excited about the grant on the electric vehicles. We want to take this opportunity to really collect all the data we need to see what propulsion we're going to go in the future. But as of right now, we plan on replacing 16 vehicles in this new capital budget.
But we in what new capital budget? If we get the sales tax money?
With the budget that's been proposed, Ms. Stiglitz is going to propose.
I'm sorry?
This is the capital budget that Ms. Stiglitz will be proposing.
Okay, so because I think that is something that at this point I think that moving to a greater electric,
has joined the meeting.
Thing. Moving, we talked about some electric last year, but now with, virtually like every, many and most transit agencies in the country are having huge moves to electric. And I think we really need to talk about, and within our transit development plan, wherever that needs to be, we need to talk about a far more robust move to electric vehicles. It's been a year since the other one, and we still, we're making grants or grant requests for electric, for CNG. I think we just need to look at that. We need to look at the plans that other agencies are doing. And so I'll just say that's one of the things that I'd like to see in here. The other concern that I have that I don't see in here at all, at least in your fast presentation at all, was our Operations and Maintenance Center, which I understand is desperately in need of update. I know it's getting a little bit of it now, but I don't understand why that and our buses aren't our number one concern and focus more than anything, could you speak to the Operations and Maintenance Center? I mean, it wasn't even one of the parts listed, one of the subjects listed there.
Sure. The operations and facilities, actually, it is listed in the TDP. There is an update. We have identified an area for a new facility building. I understand Scott Stringbill's on the call. So, Scott, if you want to talk a bit more about that, but it is in the TDP document itself.
It may be in there as an unfunded item, but it's definitely in there. It's also listed as if I'm not mistaken, as part of the TIP priority.
And what I'm thinking is that to this committee, we need to bring it back, the operations as a separate, the facility as a separate item, so we understand the progress, so that we focus on it, so that it, I would like to see it as a priority, and I'd like to have the board, be deciding that and looking at that and knowing it. I thought it was, the last I heard is we were turned down for a federal match on that, and I'm a board member with a personal relationship with our congresswoman, and I didn't know about it till after the fact. So I'm trying to see what we can do process-wise that we can change this and be looking that this committee, as well as this board, prioritizes and focuses on the things that we so desperately need. To me, there's no more important need in our entire region but for our operations and facility center. If that isn't serving, if that isn't able to expand, that affects more people using transit than anything else that we have right now in the entire region. So I'm very, very concerned about that. I'd also, as I said, like to find out exactly, have a very explicit presentation on our buses, what our plan is, and I personally would like to start to bring that plan more into an electric future. Last year I was willing to forego that. I don't want to at least forego that discussion on a yearly basis because I think at this point we've passed another year behind actually the rest of the country and the rest of the transit agencies in Florida in terms of moving to that. I think it's Broward is buying 75 electric buses now. So certainly, I think we have to learn about the feasibility, but I look at it as a big cost savings for the future. And so that's why I would like to focus on that and start looking at that. But the other was that I know when the presenter spoke, Ms. McCleary said on-demand services, and she said such as circulators. Ms. McCleary, to me, on-demand services are different than circulators. A circulator is a fixed route project, so I just was curious about that pairing of those two concepts.
Yes, initially we had on-demand services in the TDP, and we have changed that to circulators.
Okay, so
circulator services.
So on-demand services is out of the TDP and circulators are in?
Yes.
Okay. I think that as well, that specifically, as we pull out parts of this, I'd like to focus on parts because obviously if we just have this whole plan thrown out to us, it's huge. And I think we really need to start digging in and that it has to be a community and board discussion that I've not seen in my 3.5 years, and I have a feeling hasn't taken place at HART in many years in terms of defining our future and our vision. So I would just, like to say that. I also know, for the most part, the community, when Mission Max was done, as I've said before, the community sessions I went to all three that I understood at the three libraries. They were very poorly attended, a handful of people, literally. And, no serious community discussion, which I think is really important. I know we're not going to be able to do that anymore in coronavirus times, but I think that's something we need to start thinking about how we can change that at HART. But having said that, I think then I think the final piece of this is we really have to start looking when we do use those funds that I think will come to us, that we need to start looking at where we can focus our, prioritize how we want those funds spent, which we just have this big vision plan or this big TDP, and it seems like that we're not making those priorities in that plan about how we see that things need to be done. So I'm just saying that, I think that that's the other thing that this committee needs to do, and particularly when it comes to what we're going to fund in fixed guideway and how we're going to fund that and making judgments about that. I think we're going to need a lot more guidance and information to do that well.
Yes, Madam Chair, I just wanted to give you a time check. I know that the meeting started late, but it is 11:09, and the Finance and Audit meeting was scheduled to start at 11, just so you know.
Okay. Well, I don't see, is there anybody else who'd like to speak to any of that?
No, ma'am, not that we see, and Mayor Castor has indicated that she has to leave to attend another meeting.
Okay, so do we have a motion to move this forward as it is? Is there a motion? We need approval. That's accurate, correct?
Yes, ma'am, this is an action item.
Mm-hmm. Is there a motion? Okay. We do not appear to have a motion at this time, so I guess this can just be moved to the full board as is.
I'd like to make a motion to schedule at our next strategic planning meeting to go in depth on setting priorities on this plan for guidance to the main board. Right now, it is recommended to go to the main board on September 14th. Am I correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
And at September 14th, in order to have this go into our annual update, is there a deadline that we would miss if we were not to have a vote on this particular TDP at that time?
This is Chris Cochran. Yes, ma'am, it is due next month.
It is due next month.
But we can certainly, I can certainly talk with DOT and get an extension if necessary.
Well, I don't need approval to get it to the board because the basic structure is there, but what I'd like to do is schedule several agenda items for the next strategic planning meetings to review each of these plans at length so that we can bring them further conversation to the board, even though the plan may be in need of being approved. I mean, I don't see anything that would keep us from approving it at this point or the board from approving it. But what I would like to do to address Commissioner Kemp's concerns is a further analysis of how we prioritize these, how we activate our legislative support for these, and how we develop a strategy for making sure that these unfunded projects ultimately at someday get funded. So I'll move to send it to the board on the 14th.
And is there a second?
Adam, second.
Mm-hmm. And just for the record, I'll say I wasn't saying that we should move this. In fact, I'd asked at the beginning, we can make TDP updates, correct, at any time. I'll just clarify, I asked that to the staff at the beginning, correct?
Commissioner Kemp, this is Chris Cochran. It's not necessarily about updating the TDP as we go. At the end of the year, we are simply the TDP that you are approving, that a minor TDP is simply updating everything that we have talked about in that TDP. And if there's anything that changes, we summarize the changes. We summarize the progress and changes of all of the projects in there. If new projects have been initiated, we are simply putting them in there as well. So that's the primary purpose of the update. The major TDP, which will be done in 2022, will be more focused on the long-term larger projects, but that does not mean we can't put them into minor TDPs as well.
Okay, let me ask this. Would this be the time then, as we move this forward now or at the main meeting, to remove the CNG bus purchases and put something else in?
Well, I think that's a budget question. It's not necessarily a TDP. It's just listed in there. All we list in there is what is in the budget.
I see. So the budget determines what you put in here, not what we like. The electric bus is a budget item rather than a vision item.
Well, it certainly is a vision item, and that's reflected in there. But every time the amount of buses and that say Mr. Drainville plans on purchasing the following year will be determined by the service changes that we are implementing in the TDP through a 10-year vision. So we know in 5 years he may need to have 50 new buses by then. But he also needs to account for replacing whatever he needs to replace between now and 5 years as well. So that's where the TDP comes in. As far as the budget, we're just placing a snapshot of the proposed budget for 2021 into there. You're not approving necessarily that budget, so that's.
At this point, our meeting, I think, has gone on too long, and we can get more information about this. I think you have heard the sentiment, and I appreciate your comments, Commissioner Overman, and I think there's a lot of more serious work that we need to be doing on this in the future to really get a hold and have it be truly a vision of this community and of this board about how we move forward. But so we have a motion and a second. Do we have hearing any other comments?
Yes, Commissioner Kemp. This is Carolyn Stewart, Interim CEO of HART.
Yes.
We will certainly bring you quarterly program updates to the items in the TPD concerning what you've said. We will also bring to this committee sometime in the future a presentation on the bus replacement plan and also an update on the operations and facility center progress as agenda.
Great. Those would be the first things I think is really important to focus on for us to be looking at, but thank you so much.
Thank you.
Having seen no other comments, can we have staff do a roll call?
Yes, this is Danielle from HART. Please say yes or no after your name is called. Chair Kemp?
Yes.
Director Harden?
Yes.
Director Castor? Director Mechanic?
Yes.
Director Overman?
Yes.
Okay, thank you all. That concludes our meeting for today. Any old business? Any new business? Oh, I'm sorry, did I?
Actually, don't we have a discussion item regarding the submittal of the Oversight Committee? Have we deferred that?
I am sorry that,
Item 5. It may have been on.
I did not have that on my the agenda that I pulled off that they had me scripting. It's not on there, but the actual agenda. Actually, I think that was added on, and we talked about it Friday afternoon. Can I ask? We had some discussion about this on the phone with staff, and I'm sorry it wasn't on the agenda I've been following here, and I was wondering about that at one time. to staff, Ms. Stewart, can we defer this item, or does it have to be decided at this time, or does it have to be discussed at this time?
Madam, I think the intent was that we would discuss it as an FYI because it does have to go to the board before we can submit it in the fall to the Oversight Committee. And I think Chris was prepared. We do have a couple of slides on that, don't we, Chris?
Okay.
Madam Chair, may I speak, please?
Yes.
It was on an amended agenda that came out, I believe, this morning, and I would move that we defer it to next month.
The only issue with that's why I was checking. I would move to defer till next month too, but is it that it has to be submitted to them within this month, Ms. Stewart?
October 1, it has to be submitted to the IOC.
Oh, okay, so we do have another month to do this. Okay. Okay, then would you like to make a motion to defer?
I have made a motion to defer, please.
Okay, do we have a second?
Adam Harden, second. Harden,
Yep.
second.
Okay, any other discussion? Seeing no discussion, staff, please take the roll call. Thank you for pointing that out, Commissioner Overman.
No worries. I just saw it too, so.
Please say yes or no after your name is called. Chair Kemp?
Yes.
Director Harden?
Yes.
Director Mechanic?
Yes.
Director Overman?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. I spent a lot of time working on that and talking about it, but I kind of thought it was part of the, that had been, I was wondering about that when we came to the end of the agenda. Okay, thank you. Any old business? New business? Hearing none, meetings adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.